Walking into a piano store and looking at the sticker price can be a shock. Pianos are sometimes as expensive, if not more, than automobiles. So today, Ted and I are going to talk about why are pianos so expensive.
Hi, this is Ted with Alamo Music Center in beautiful downtown San Antonio, Texas.
I'm Patrick Marr. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channels, check out our other videos, sign up for notifications, like our videos, leave us comments. We appreciate your support and we love to interact with you. Ted, pianos are so expensive. And it's sometimes a very hard conversation.
Oh, people are shocked.
It's a hard conversation because a lot of times people are not prepared for seeing that giant price and being like, whoa, like I thought I was, I'm trying to invest in my kid here, or, I've always had a dream of getting an instrument. I'm gonna go check Craigslist for that free piano.
This is as expensive as a pool.
I've seen free ones pop up. My grandma wants to give me hers. Yeah. There's all the, there's I would say a misconception of the value of an instrument and the price tag that manufacturers are asking for a new one, and the overall value. Sometimes on the used market too, there's some incredibly priced instruments. So I think the concept of this video, the reason we are tackling this subject is I think it's an important one to kind of understand why one of these instruments is so expensive.
Well, you were talking a minute before about consumerism and how that has become a machine in and of itself, where it used to just be people buying stuff. Well, as a result of the last year and a half, people sticking around, they're out shopping for things they never shopped for before, just as curiosity and, what the hell, we're in the area and I haven't been in a piano store since I was a little kid. Boy, was I surprised. I mean, I know my parents paid $8,000 for my piano, but that was 35 years ago. That same kind of is just like that. Now they cost like 23. And so a lot of times in order to explain it, there's a process, and you try to keep it short, because it's a short visit. It's like, look, they got to go get the stuff and then give it to guys that know what they're doing. And you think about it. Every time you see someone cutting down trees, that's the logging industry, or every time you see heavy duty equipment digging out ore, those two things are products that go into a piano. And that's some hard raw materials and labor. You're talking about logging and mining. And those two end products of perfection. It's not like they're just give me some rocks. I mean, you need the right kind of rocks. And then you got to mix it and get the right kind of steel. And then after 100, 200 years of building pianos, there's only a certain amount of, ore that goes into it. And you got to have a certain amount of nickel. You got to turn it into steel, not just lead or, pure ore.
Yeah.
So, and then no one wants to look at a rocky frame in their piano. It's got to be slick. And so part of it is, and before you even get into the materials, the number one thing, this is a cost. And I had mentioned using the Boston piano as an example. So Steinway & Sons design, invent, think up, dream up, and then they didn't even get to the marketing and promotion yet. A brand new Boston type piano. And this is what, 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. And so that's what I call the configuration. It's the design of the instrument, just the harp part itself has to work mathematically. Then you have to come out with an engineered construction process, how we're going to make this thing, and certain steps. And then you have to have some kind of blueprint, which is a step-by-step overlay until the thing is finished. So it's a plan. Someone's got to be in charge of the plan, because remember, this is a business thing. So the bottom line of the plan is that it ends up in profits. And so you have all these heavy-duty expenses, which I mentioned were raw materials. Again, ore, which is the steel that goes into it. And in a piano, there's different types of steel. There's this type of steel that goes into the frame. There's the different types of steel that make up the strings, starting with the bass strings. They're wound in copper. And then you have the treble strings, and they're different gauges. And the measurement of all those gauges is part of the plan. Then you have the steel that's involved in the tuning pins. And then the little separator things they have in there. What do they call those? I want to say paraquats, but it's not. It's something else. It's
on the A-grafts?
Yeah, the A-grafts.
Okay, A-grafts, yeah.
All of those. Then you have the hitch pins. A lot of times those are built into the frame, but on some pianos like Baldwin and a few others, they put hitch pins in there. And then you also have the brass wheels.
Yeah.
And then you have the brass pedals, and then the different type of brass rods that connect the pedal.
And that's just metal.
And that's just all different types of steel that go into it.
And then you think about the wood, and it's the kind of the same story, but
it is different types of lumber for the frame, different type of lumber for the key bed, different kind of lumber for the legs and for the lyre, and then a different kind of lumber for the keys, and then
soundboard.
A more precise kind of lumber for the action, unless you're using the composite components, and then the most expensive piece of lumber is the soundboard. And then you have all the ribbing. And so you're talking about high-end, expensive types of lumber, maple, birch, Sitka spruce, different kinds of pines that go into the keys. And so there's a lot of different types. And again, remember, Kawai, Yamaha, Steinway, Bosendorfer, they don't really have, they have guys that cut wood, but they're not going out picking their trees and sawing them down and then taking it and selling off the bark and selling off the needles and then using what they want. They're buying what they need from someone else. And the same thing with the raw materials of the steel. They have to get from someone else.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So
then there's wool. Okay, so wool is the third natural material that's in there, and there's different types of wool. There's the hammer wool, there's the felt wrapping wool, and then there's all the little components of different grades of wool and weights that go in to keep the keys balanced and keep everything quiet. Then there's even little wool pads on the back end of the of your pedals with the push rods and the receiving rods, so that there's wool all over a piano. And so those are raw materials, because you're basically looking at trees, a bunch of rocks, and a flock of sheep, and there's a piano coming out of there. Okay, so that's the conversion is expensive, because you have to have not just guys like us. I mean, you need skilled labor. Like, you need a wool guy that's an expert, a couple of lumber guys that are experts, and then you also need the steel guys that are experts.
And at the end of this, it's got to be a precise machine that creates sound that's pleasing.
Well, that's not even counting the machines to force the raw materials into those forms and those formats, the blueprint. Okay,
well, that's the way they've tried to cut down on costs, is by creating machines that can configure raw materials into usable materials.
And it's got to be applied like the blueprint.
And it's got to be assembled and checked. And so you can tell that this is a very long process, a very not cheap process. And I know as consumers, as pianists, we're like, whoa, I just want a piano. I want to be able to afford this piano. And so you look at the discrepancy in new technology. And so this is kind of a point I wanted to get to, is there are these digital pianos that are coming out, different research and development teams. So the dream team that came up with the Boston piano for Steinway, there's people sitting around and say, okay, needs this, and they take that blueprint, they give it to Kawai and say, can you build this? And so those are two completely different companies creating completely different cost analysis, labor analysis, and adding their own price to these things.
While minding the bottom line.
While remembering what the bottom line is, sending off to their stores who are looking at the bottom line as well. And I know that, and that almost sounds like a dirty word, because it's like,
you guys actually make money selling
these things? You need to make money doing this?
They cost enough.
But it's a whole bunch of skilled laborers coming together, whether you're the lumber industry cutting it down, or whether you're the Steinway creating a game plan for this, or whether you're Kawai building the Boston piano, or whether you're the Steinway gallery store selling the Steinway piano.
Well, now these are the primary expenses, okay? And I did not include, and these are also huge expenses that we're just ignoring. Okay, one is transportation. We're just ignoring that because we're talking about the manufacturing. Yeah. That's an incurred cost.
And
the other one is
shipping something that weighs 1,000 pounds.
All the way, halfway around the world, or three-quarters of the way. It's going to cost $2,000, and you just can't move one, right? So you do it, and then also advertising, promotions, and of course sales. All of those things cost. They cost a lot of money, and when the final product is put out, that manufacturing company gets nothing back from that. When it leaves their plant and it's bought and paid for, they don't get anything else. They can't charge more just because they feel like it or they're having a bad month. I mean, there's not a whole lot of leeway in adjusting prices on a lot of times, even at the retail end. But everyone's got to make money, everyone that touches it, otherwise it doesn't work. So when you add in all of the cost, all of the skilled labor, all of the skilled labor you need before you can even design and implement. It's kind of like hiring an architect, okay? But if you look at just the cost of what happened to lumber during the last year and a half as a result of the home market just booming. Well, and also, that's not even the kind of lumber that they use in a piano. Those are secondary, those are construction grade lumbers. They're not even the heavy duty, precision, ultra expensive lumbers.
And I think something to be mindful of is production costs right now are starting to skyrocket. There is, talks of an inflated market coming. What does that mean for pianos specifically? In regards to material and in regards to getting it here we're here in the United States, but getting to where it's destined for, what does that mean for pianos of the future? Where are pianos going as far as a cost standpoint? Digital pianos are their own separate thing, with their own separate story of microchips and design teams and new technologies. Those expense reasons
for digital pianos, because you can make it, there should be a counter video. Why are digital pianos so expensive? And the bottom line is that, just like it is on this piano, this conversation with acoustic pianos, you get what you pay for. If in a digital piano, naturally you're not getting the same type of quality of raw materials, but those same abstracts of those raw materials are in there.
And so when you buy a new piano, to kind of bring this full circle, when you buy a new piano, would you say that is a safe investment on the expense?
It is if you have no plans on profiting from it. In other words, if you wanted to say, I'm going to spend $15,000 on a brand new piano today, what's the most maximum amount of piano I can get, regardless of manufacturer, and say, I'm going to wait 12 years before I upgrade or sell my piano, I'm just going to park it there for 12 years or 15 years, however long you want. At that time, your piano more than likely will have appreciated some. And so you should at least be able to get back what you paid for it. If there's 10 to 15 years in it, you should get back what you paid for it. And that is including any inflation. Yeah, you're going to get more than you paid for it, but the value is the value.
Yeah, it's not like a get rich scheme of buying a piano now. You're going to, but I think the profit. It's interesting that you said profit, but I think the value that you do get from owning it is what you can use it for. The
use. I mean, you're paying not to. I mean, you're paying to advance your own skills as a musician, or to give someone else a tool so they can advance their own skills as a musician or composer or whatnot.
And that could be a priceless thing. When you think of investments, especially at this price point, in say an automobile, if you put $15,000 into an automobile today, in 12, 15 years, what is it? It's going to be worth almost.
Right, but you have to look again at the return. What did you get in return value? I had transportation for 15 years that gave me no headaches. Or I had a viable access to a phenomenal instrument for 10 or 15 years, and that improved me as a person. And makes your whole life better all the way around.
And so I think it's important to remember these things when looking at price tags. Not to say you should spend all your money on a piano or anything like that. This is not a video about that. This is more looking at a piano, trying to understand how something so beautiful and neatly compacted into a 5-foot baby grand case can cost so much money.
Yeah, and it's tough to be a manufacturer, because a manufacturer wants everyone in the world playing their instruments because they believe we make the best instruments, and it's like, we can't get it cheaper than this.
And it's interesting because a lot of people will look at that and then look at a used 40 or 50-year-old instrument and say, why is this one, $5,000 and this one $20,000? They look similar. There's a lot that goes into the conversation of value at that point. And so these are just things to kind of help conceptualize where the piano world is, and where, once you start upgrading, once you start looking at entry line products that are using all these quality materials, once the price starts going up, when you look at that second tier of new instruments, they really are improving the materials you're getting, the quality, the attention to detail and quality, the game plans behind the scenes. A lot of these things increase when the price does, obviously, but it's on a multi-tier level. And so it's always important to kind of realize when comparing apples to apples on a sales floor.
Manufacturers always do that. They come up with a tentative new product. They don't announce it to the world. They make a couple of them, see how they work, and then they actually weigh out their costs and think, hey man, we went way over budget on this thing. Where can we cut corners? Or where can we kind of recoup some expenses? Or where can we just do something so that every 1,000 there's an extra one in there or something,
So, to end the video, will pianos be more expensive or less expensive in the future?
I see them only getting more expensive. I really do, because raw materials do not get any cheaper. In the history of the earth, I mean, dirt has always been dirt, but a pound of gold fluctuates, and so do lumber prices, so do ore prices, and of course, so do labor prices.
And so, not to say right now is the best time to buy a new piano, but it kind of is always the best time if it's in your budget, if it's in your plans, enjoying the instrument as long as you can. When you are able to make that decision, I always push people, get the one that you can afford now. You can start growing with it. If you ever want to upgrade, there's always that chance. It's always a safe time to buy, because
no time like the present.
They're just going to get more expensive, and you're just going to have less time with that instrument. The only two,
That's what you're really paying for, is time with the instrument.
And so
that's what it's all about.
So that's our video on why pianos are so expensive. Hopefully you guys learned something. If you have any insights, if you maybe worked in the piano industry, or you're passionate about pianos, if you've bought a new piano recently, we'd love your feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave some in the comments. People will really appreciate it when they are looking for new instruments. Thanks for watching. This is Ted. I'm Patrick. We're with Alamo Music, and you can find us online at alamomusic.com.